I kissed other women while in a failing LDR 2 years ago. My now happy GF doesn't know. I do not need to be criticized or condemned. I fully recognize how horrible the actions I have taken and the person I have been are. While I do not identify as religious, if there is indeed a hell, I find solace in knowing that the numerous decisions I made in my early adulthood have secured me a place there. I am uncertain why I am sharing this. Perhaps I seek someone to provide guidance, or maybe I just need to articulate my feelings, but I sincerely apologize for further tarnishing your views on mankind. I have been in an on and off relationship with this girl for the past 4 years. Before I transitioned to university, we dated for a year in person while I attended community college, and it was fantastic. We seemed to be perfectly compatible, with no issues whatsoever. However, after being accepted into university, I informed her that I could not handle a long-distance relationship due to my insecurities stemming from my last attempt at one, leading us to break up. We were apart for a year, during which we both explored relationships with other people, though I was far more active in that regard, yet we maintained what felt like a forced connection. It is important to acknowledge that I was not a good friend to her during that time. I exhibited immaturity, jealousy, and outright disrespect. Eventually, we both missed each other enough to give a long-distance relationship a try. I recognized it was particularly selfish of me not to have agreed to the possibility initially, so I was determined to make it work. In hindsight, I now see that I was far from stable or mature enough to succeed in that arrangement. Initially, things were fine, but over time, our relationship started to decline. We frequently argued, and although we would see each other once or twice a month, my schedule often restricted the time we could spend together. I was preparing to apply to medical school, meaning my days stretched from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. This situation caused her distress, as it would for many others, and was largely where our unhappiness originated. She felt I was unable to devote sufficient time to our relationship, while I was overwhelmed and dissatisfied with the circumstances, leading to mutual complaints and conflicts. If she had lived closer, we would have had enough brief intervals during the day to spend time together, and I would always see her when I returned home. However, arranging extended outings became a challenge. At the lowest point of our struggling long-distance relationship, I was at home during a party hosted by my fraternity, inebriated, leaning against a wall while waiting for the restroom. A girl who had been following me around all night approached and kissed me on the lips. I did not respond in kind, as I was unable to, but my engagement with her throughout the night was inappropriate. Following this, she entered the bathroom after me, where I inadvertently poured out my troubles about my relationship, expressing my unhappiness and describing how my girlfriend felt the same, conveying that we seemed to be failing. I eventually retreated to my room, she followed, and when a friend came in and asked if she should leave, she left upon seeing our exchange. It appears I repressed this memory, terrified to confront it, as I continued with life. Yet this situation was far from over. A week or two later, my girlfriend and I had an extensive conversation over the phone concerning our relationship. We both acknowledged that a long-distance relationship was becoming unmanageable. She voiced her unhappiness and expressed that I was not the same boyfriend I had been when we lived closer. Consequently, we broke up. Only 2 weeks passed before I suggested we attempt to reconcile, which she was also willing to try. It is important to note that I have engaged in considerable reflection regarding this period and my character. I have always struggled with insecurity related to receiving attention from others, stemming from a lack of it during my teenage years. As I matured and began receiving attention, my rationality was overshadowed by insecurity, resulting in a series of poor conscious decisions. About 2 weeks after we rekindled our relationship, I held a party at my house and drank more than I ever had before, particularly following midterms. I am not attempting to use this as an excuse. Rather, I believe it unveiled my true self and intentions. The gathering had a bucket list theme, wherein we wrote actions on one another's shirts and acted them out. While standing with friends, a girl approached and wrote "kiss me" on my shirt, then pulled me in for a kiss, which I reluctantly returned. A short time later, a different girl repeated the process, and towards the end of the night, yet another girl began dancing with me, leading to a longer kiss that I fully engaged in, until my friend intervened and took me inside. The following hour was spent weeping in his embrace, and everyone in my fraternity became aware of what had transpired. Subsequently, I fell into a depressive state lasting around 3 months. My academic performance faltered, I isolated myself in my room, and the only person I communicated with was my girlfriend, someone I felt unworthy of contacting. To this day, she remains unaware of those nights as I was too selfish, frightened, and, frankly, despicable to inform her. I do not require others to tell me I should have been honest. I am acutely aware that I should have been. Yet I did not disclose the truth then, and I still have not. Following that incident, I ceased drinking, attending parties, and engaging in socializing like I had previously. My relationship with my girlfriend gradually improved as my schedule became more manageable, and I recognized the need to prioritize her. I completed my college degree, and now we share a living space once again in her hometown. She does not perceive me as a perfect boyfriend, nor do I pretend to be one. She candidly tells me that she occasionally hated how I treated her during our long-distance relationship and really disliked me at times. I take full responsibility for my behavior, feeling tremendous embarrassment. However, I continue to hold back on being completely honest about everything. I cannot label those nights as mistakes. Instead, they were conscious choices, regardless of my level of intoxication. I understand why I acted as I did. During those weeks, with our relationship on the edge of ending, broken up, and then trying to restart, I felt unhappy. To me, she was a friend who visited bi-monthly, not a girlfriend. I yearned for both physical and emotional intimacy, neither of which I could enjoy consistently in a long-distance relationship. I was anxious and could not envision a future with her concerning career and family considerations. In essence, I was just a selfish and awful person. I am confident that I will never repeat such behavior, as I have learned from my experiences. I eventually emerged from my depression and began going to clubs with friends while having a few drinks. This has become infrequent, and on those occasions, I drink significantly less than I once did. At these venues, I still received attention from other women, but this time, I promptly rejected it, stating that I am unavailable. I finally learned what it means to meet the basic expectations of being in a long-distance relationship and being a good partner, although, unfortunately, I gained this insight too late. Nowadays, we are happier than ever. We cohabit, volunteer together, communicate effectively, and rarely argue. I have been accepted into several medical schools, and discussions about her relocating with me are underway. It is possible we may need to part ways for career-oriented and family-related reasons, but we acknowledge this possibility and are actively discussing it. I refuse to enter another long-distance relationship, but I cannot erase the memory of those 2 nights from 2 years ago. I recognize my wrongdoing. I am deliberately undermining her ability to make her own decisions regarding our relationship. I am dishonest and depriving her of her autonomy. I am violating all principles of honesty. I will never become the better man I aspire to be as long as I continue down this path. I think of those nights nearly every day, if not daily. I harbor immense guilt and anger towards myself that will linger throughout my life, regardless of whether she is aware of it. My self-perception has been, and will forever remain, fractured. I do not expect sympathy when I express this, but I genuinely see myself as an awful person. I am failing to afford her the common courtesy of fully disclosing how poorly I treated her. Thus, any perceived honesty I maintain with her at present lacks validity. I claim I am reluctant to tell her because I love her deeply. However, is it truly love if I am withholding this from her? On a more self-centered note, I realize I have changed. I understand that we are now at our happiest, and I believe this will persist due to my personal growth and the absence of long-distance challenges. I know I can contribute positively to her life, as she will undoubtedly reciprocate my efforts. I can see that I make her genuinely happy today, and I recognize that despite my past mistreatment of her, she has forgiven me and can only envision a future filled with happiness alongside me. She helped me overcome a substance addiction during my time at community college, and we are very well matched concerning interests, personalities, and everything else. I fear losing that, as I know she shares the same anxiety about risking it. She has, in casual discussions, mentioned that she could forgive someone for kissing another while in a relationship. However, I did not merely kiss one person. We discussed a story about an elderly man who discovered that his wife of 4 decades had cheated on him long ago. She commented, "At that point, just don't let me find out." This feeling continues to haunt me, and I have wrestled with it for 2 years. I would not divulge the truth to alleviate my guilt, as that would be purely selfish. I would share because it is what she rightfully deserves, and it would be honest of me. Whenever I want to do something nice for her, I remind myself of my past actions and maximize whatever money or time I devote to her in an attempt to make amends, as if that could somehow rectify my misdeeds. At times, when I hesitate to pursue the career I have chosen, I remind myself that I do not deserve an easy path or a simple life, hoping that the care I provide as a physician can somehow compensate for the people I have hurt throughout my life and all the wrongs I have committed. Some individuals online assert, "Are you kidding? Just tell her," while others suggest, "Forget about it and bear the pain you brought upon yourself. Never hurt her again." I feel as though I understand what I need to do, but I wonder whether the end justifies the means or if it is the other way around in this situation. Thank you for allowing me to express my thoughts. Story 2. Aita for dating my, now, ex-best friend's enemy. I need some guidance. Should I block the individual named Lilac and all of their friends? This message may come off as very cheesy, but I am 16 and it is impacting my mental well-being, so I genuinely want some advice. I am currently in a relationship with my partner, whom I will refer to as Apple. We are both 16 years old. A significant amount of drama transpired between Apple and my former friend group, which includes my ex-boyfriend and ex-best friend, whom I'll call Snowy. It is important to note that most of this drama occurred last year when I was in 9th grade. Numerous false rumors have circulated about my ex, claiming that he was spreading racist comments and being overly affectionate with others. At that time, we were friends. Apple comes from a low-income background, which becomes relevant later. They had feelings for two individuals, one being Snowy and the other a person I will refer to as Crow, who happens to be Snowy's best friend. Despite having limited financial resources, Apple generously bought many gifts for Snowy and Crow. However, Crow identifies as asexual, and Snowy simply did not reciprocate Apple's feelings. A major conflict arose because Apple was not open about their emotions. Consequently, the entire group fractured, with their mutual friend, whom I will call Lilac, caught in the middle of the chaos. Lilac spoke negatively about Apple, and to be honest, I was uncertain about which side to take. I was dealing with my own personal struggles at the time, so I didn't know how to navigate the situation. I supported Apple, who was experiencing a downward spiral, while neither Crow, Snowy, nor Lilac seemed to show any concern. Fast forward to the summer after school ended, and I began talking frequently with Snowy. I found him to be the funniest person I knew, which is why I developed feelings for him. He quickly became my best friend, and since I already had a crush on him, things seemed great. I confessed my feelings in late July, and we dated for 5 days. That was it. He then mentioned that he could not continue the relationship because he wanted to remain friends. While our friendship initially suffered, it later improved, and he expressed feelings for me again, claiming he wanted to marry me one day in front of our mutual friend. However, I sensed him distancing himself, which triggered my depression. My mood depended solely on Snowy. I experienced relapses because of him, and my sleep was affected. Every emotional response I had seemed to originate from him not solely due to my crush, but because of my obsession and the notion that I couldn't imagine life without him. He promised to help me escape my situation with my abusive parents. Our last conversation was in November while I was visiting family in Virginia. I began to lose feelings for him in December, finally allowing myself to detach, although I confided in my friends that I disliked Snowy, even though I did not truly feel that way. It is also essential to mention that Snowy, Crow, and Lilac still harbor strong animosity toward Apple. As January arrived, Apple and I rekindled our friendship. I had never severed ties completely. The reason we became closer again is that Apple's humor greatly reminded me of Snowy, although Apple is decidedly better. I shared a few playful posts featuring Apple on my Instagram story for close friends, partly hoping Snowy would see them. He did, and reacted positively. However, the following day, He posted a vague message on his notes suggesting that we were all becoming friends with our adversaries. I inquired if it was directed at me, and he confirmed. He expressed anger, but I genuinely did not care. I replied, defending myself, stating that he had not communicated with me at all. Our friendship had deteriorated, and I was unwilling to accept that treatment. I told him that if he no longer wanted to be friends, I understood. He countered by suggesting that I was the one who did not wish to remain friends. I reassured him that was not the case. He was still my best friend and my top priority. At that time, I still held an obsession with him. However, I could tell he had changed, becoming increasingly egotistical and indifferent. Ultimately, I decided to remove Snowy and Lilac from my close friends list. A month later, on February 15th, I confessed my feelings to Apple because I had finally moved on from Snowy. After 9 long months, he was completely out of my thoughts. We began dating, our first date is today, and everything was progressing well. My social media story remained hidden from Snowy and his friends, as well as Lilac's acquaintances. You can never be too cautious, right? Apple created illustrations of us, and we used them as matching profile pictures because I thought it was adorable. Everything seemed to be going smoothly, and we were about 4 days into our relationship. Then, Lilac reached out to me on Instagram, asking who I was dating. At that moment, I still considered Lilac to be cool and told him that I was dating Apple. I hopped on a call with Lilac, and he seemed to take the news well. He did not overreact as I had anticipated. The next day, it struck me, why was I hiding from Snowy? I resolved to not let him or the feelings he caused me control me any longer, so I unhid my story. The following day, while I was working on school assignments, I received a message from none other than Snowy. "Hey name, we can't be friends." Then he blocked me before I even had a chance to respond. I could not help but laugh at the absurdity. What I worried about the most was whether Lilac would block me. So I sent him a few messages expressing my affection as a friend and my desire not to lose him. I then invited him to jump back on a call with me. We talked for a while, and I humiliated myself by apologizing, which I sincerely regret now. He said things like, "I'm not going to abandon you, but it's really questionable that you're now dating Apple." I felt like ripping my hair out at that moment. He shared a screenshot of our previous messages with me, which honestly made me feel foolish. That alone indicated he had been speaking negatively about me. He even had the nerve to offer a terrible excuse, claiming he just wanted to inform someone else, who I had introduced him to, about the drama. The call ended up being somewhat okay. We kind of made up. For the next few days, I couldn't shake the thoughts of all this drama. It felt like a weight in my stomach. The anxiety and anger this situation brings forth are unhealthy for me. I find myself wanting to relapse again. The only source of comfort amidst all this is Apple. I have not disclosed this situation to them, given their disdain for Lilac and Snowy. Honestly, I am not even sure if I want to share it with them. Furthermore, it is worth noting that Lilac was the one who informed Apple about Snowy's alleged racism towards them. Both Lilac and Apple are black. Lilac is mixed, but you can clearly see he is black. Snowy is white. Lilac accused Snowy of calling Apple derogatory names like ogre and monkey and mocking their skin tone. The irony is, Apple didn't seem to be very affected by it. They weren't spreading rumors, more like confiding in a friend or two, which I find entirely reasonable because, honestly, who does Snowy think he is? I suppose I really wish I knew what the right course of action is. This whole situation is exhausting, and it is severely undermining my mental health, which I cannot afford right now. I am already dealing with so much and don't think I can handle anything else. I find myself contemplating whether I should block Lilac, but I'm very conflicted. My feelings toward them fluctuate. It feels draining to navigate uncertainties. Plus, I am starting to doubt whether I deserve to be in a relationship with Apple at all. I understand this is a lot to process, but I truly wish I could get someone else's perspective on it. Maybe I am the one at fault. I just wish I knew. How can I be the villain for simply striving for happiness? After 9 months, I am finally starting to feel better. I am beginning to feel hopeful again, yet it seems as if everyone wants to take that away from me. Story 3. 33M and 27F. Business trip. My fiancé, 33 years old, recently went on a business trip for a week out of state. I am 27 years old. We have been in a relationship for 6 years and have been engaged for approximately 8 months. We recently purchased a home and have been undertaking renovations. When he left on Monday, I realized I would be alone and inquired if I could begin removing the carpets. He was enthusiastic and agreed, as it had been something we had wanted to do for some time. Throughout the day, we chose new flooring. Since I have been saving, particularly for significant purchases, I offered to cover the cost, and he was thrilled and eager to work on it when we returned home. That evening, I presented him with the project, and he appeared genuinely excited. However, the following day, his messages seemed more concise. He then mentioned that I also needed to send him $1,000 for rent. I informed him that I had just purchased the flooring and that our incomes were roughly equal. He expressed gratitude for the flooring purchase, but emphasized that I was still responsible for my half of the mortgage. He stated that since I did not want to combine our accounts at this time, my buying the flooring was essentially a gift, and if I couldn't also send him $1,000, I should return the flooring. This felt unusual to me because I had paid the entire mortgage for January and February due to his unexpected expenses, such as our cat needing surgery and my fiancé requiring dental work. Currently, we earn approximately the same amount, so I struggled to understand how the $1,000 would leave him short. He claimed that my previous mortgage payments were my responsibility for offering, and he would have taken out a loan otherwise. He even threatened that if I could not provide the $1,000, I could go live with my father. Eventually, he calmed down and apologized for treating me as if I did not contribute. He admitted that he had skipped a credit card payment because he was anticipating my payment of the $1,000. I then transferred him the money with the condition that I would no longer be making significant purchases solely on my own. Later that night, he mentioned that he had made some friends named Brandy and Kate, along with a male friend named John. All names are fictitious. I expressed discomfort about the girls and requested that he refrain from obtaining their contact information. He claimed he did not get their numbers, but admonished me for being upset, saying it was not his fault that his profession consists primarily of women. I responded with an acknowledgement, and we shifted the topic. On Wednesday, he informed me he was going go-karting with some friends. I mentioned that if it was just the girls, I would feel uneasy, especially since we had just spent a considerable amount of money, and I had sent him the additional $1,000. Going out felt costly, given that we still needed to save for other home repairs and eventually for the wedding. He accused me of being controlling, asserting that go-karting was not a significant concern and that it would be himself, Brandy, Kate, and John. I remarked that it felt very much like a couple's outing, which made me uncomfortable, and suggested that it might be okay if more guys joined. He then told me I was being manipulative and controlling, and that he was not going to allow me to spoil his day. He subsequently stopped messaging me, and I did not reply. That evening, he sent me a picture of himself with 3 guys, stating that I would be pleased to know he had not gone go-karting with them and instead had met 2 other guys who were in town. He mentioned that the others did not seem enthusiastic about go-karting anyway, and he had a good time. Thursday, I did not hear much from him. He indicated that he went to bed early after dining on lobster, claiming that when my sisters and I called to discuss her college life, I had woken him, and he simply was not feeling well. The next morning, Friday, he apologized if he had disrupted my phone call with my sister, explaining that he was just unwell after eating. Now, here we are today. I picked him up from the airport, and he jokingly remarked that I should have brought balloons, referencing another guy he had seen at the airport. I made a lighthearted response, and he said he was simply ready to kiss or be with me. In the car, he handed me his phone to look at pictures. While browsing, I noticed that he had messaged his mother. While I know it was not right, I enjoy reading their exchanges because I have a fondness for his mom. He exploded with anger, questioning how I could go through his phone, and I replied that his reaction was excessive, asking what he was concerned about. He then told me to go ahead and read it. He continued yelling at me, saying, "See, look what you've done." I am an unhurried reader, and I find it even more challenging to focus when someone is yelling at me. However, from what I gathered, he had informed his mom that a woman had approached him, which was very upsetting for him. His mother had essentially told him that this happened to women all the time and that he should simply make wise decisions, indicating that it meant he was an attractive man. I inquired about who the woman was, and he revealed it was Brandy. He explained that he had not disclosed this to me because of my reaction. I asked him, like what? That sounds quite vague. How did she come on to you? He responded that I was only asking so I could say, I told you so. I clarified that I merely wanted to understand what transpired. He explained that on Thursday, she had been acting strangely and giving him too much attention, so he chose to sit elsewhere during lunch. Then, on the bus back to the hotel, he emphasized that he did not sit next to her, and when they arrived at the hotel, she approached him, asking if he was avoiding her. He replied negatively, and she mentioned that she felt left out since he had gone out with the guys the day before. She then suggested that they go up to her room to discuss it. He responded by asking if she did not have a family, to which she countered, "Yeah, so, don't you? What's the issue?" He stated that he was not interested and felt uncomfortable, so he went to bed early. He noted that the following day, Brandy did not attend class. During lunch, he asked Kate and another girl whether a man should have to inform every woman he meets that he is engaged to prevent being hit on. He explained that the girls supported him in saying he should not have to do that. I simply responded, okay, and asked if there was anything else he knew about her. I wanted to learn more about this person. He mentioned that she was not linked to his branch and that he knew virtually nothing about her, insisting that I was just jealous and that it was traumatic for him, hence his decision to only confide in his mother. I expressed doubt about how he could know absolutely nothing about her after not informing me of what happened and having been friends since Monday. I reiterated that I simply wanted to understand who she was. He then told me to get out of the kitchen and the house, expressing an intense desire for me to leave him alone. I stated that if he needed space, he could exit the house or go to another room, but since it is my house too, I wished to remain and process the situation, suggesting we could drop the topic. He then began yelling in my face, even climbing onto the counter and at one point yelling directly into my ear. I felt paralyzed. Tears began to flow. When he finally ceased yelling and walked away, I retreated to the bedroom and locked the door. He yelled, "Thank God." A short while later, my sisters called to discuss their day. I relished the distraction and mentioned I was waiting to pick up my fiancé from the airport. I could hear him attempting to open the door and shouting, "Fuck you, so you can talk to your sisters about this. Maybe I will call my mom or sister to vent about you." Fortunately, I managed to mute the call when I sensed him fiddling with the doorknob. My sisters did not detect anything unusual. After their conversation about their day concluded, I informed them that I would need to pick him up soon and we hung up. I then finished composing this message. I can hear him in the kitchen preparing food. I just feel so unsettled and alone, unsure of whom to confide in. Story 4. Aita for punishing my daughter by taking her phone away after finding out she's venting on a secret TikTok account about how my husband and I treat her. I understand this is a lengthy narrative, and I apologize if certain aspects are difficult to follow, but I ask you to read the entire account regardless, as I am in need of assistance and perspectives from others. My daughter, who is 15 years old and on the autism spectrum, faces numerous behavioral challenges. She frequently experiences mood swings and irritability, often throwing tantrums over trivial matters. I am 41 years old and have recently reached my limit with her behavior, which has prompted me to become firmer and more decisive in my approach. She is fixated on parenting methods and is quick to critique my husband, who is 47, and me regarding our discipline when she misbehaves. We respond by reminding her that our methods are not harmful and that many parents might resort to harsher discipline. Typically, this conversation arises whenever one of us raises our voice or uses strong language during her outbursts, and she tends to portray herself as the victim. Recently, I overheard her speaking about my husband and me in her room. It appeared she was expressing views on how we treat her, so this morning, I approached her door to listen. I heard her discussing her thoughts on parenting and venting about us. I knocked on her door, and when she invited me in, I noticed she was holding her phone in an unusual manner. I inquired about what she was doing, and she claimed she was merely browsing YouTube and talking to her stuffed animal, but I sensed something was amiss. I informed her that I could hear her and suggested she was not just conversing with her stuffed animal. She insisted that she was, and I asked to see her phone. Initially, she resisted, but I warned her that if she did not comply, her father would take it from her, resulting in the phone being confiscated for the day. She eventually handed it over. Upon checking, I found she was on YouTube Shorts, so I closed that app and checked her recently used applications. The only other app open was TikTok, so I clicked on it, and it restarted. After figuring out the app briefly, I clicked on Profile at the bottom of the screen, which led me to her TikTok account, one we were previously unaware of. The account name appeared to be either LaylaGirl90 or LaylaGirl360. While reviewing her videos, the first two seemed innocuous, but the third showed her crying, with text reading, "My mom just threatened to stop cooking meals for me and told me I could start preparing my own food because I was screaming and having a meltdown," which I considered utterly untrue. This incident occurred on Wednesday when I suggested postponing dinner until the next day, prompting her to retreat to her room in tears. Frustrated with her persistent tantrums, I approached her room and pleaded with her not to scream about food, informing her that I would cease preparing simple dishes she could make herself, and that I was tired of her reacting disproportionately. I then proceeded to the next video, where the text stated, "Not being listened to as a highly sensitive person." In this video, she expressed her feelings about my irritation when she interrupted a conversation between my husband and me, arguing that I should have responded differently. She mentioned feeling unable to cry even though she wanted to because she feared facing our criticism for being overly sensitive. She is indeed quite sensitive and sometimes tears up too easily. The next two videos appeared typical. I opted not to watch them. I noticed a message button at the bottom of the screen, so I clicked on it and found she was communicating with several individuals. While perusing the messages, I discovered she had shared with them my threat to stop cooking for her, which infuriated me. What troubled me even more was that she was conversing with an adult man who had asked her to become his sugar baby. She was also venting about my husband and me. While she stood up for herself against his inappropriate remarks, she expressed reluctance to block or report him, stating she needed someone to confide in. Although he eventually ceased his odd comments and listened to her, my anger persisted. While I was examining her TikTok on her bed, she was in the living room. I called her into her room and conveyed my disapproval of her airing grievances about her father and me online, as well as my discomfort with her confiding in strangers. I expressed my concerns about the inappropriate comments made by the man and informed her that she would lose her phone for a day due to these actions. She became upset, arguing that this was unfair and constituted poor parenting. I stated that I was not concerned with her views on parenting, emphasizing that she would face consequences for her disrespectful behavior. She argued that her actions did not warrant such punishment and that she was entitled to express her feelings on TikTok. I insisted I had the right to take her phone for any reason I deemed fit and that I did not wish to discuss it further. I exited her room with her phone and closed the door behind me. I genuinely did not want to invade her privacy by going through her phone, as I believe she deserves some autonomy, but I needed to ensure that there was no misrepresentation of our family dynamics to others. My husband and I do not mistreat her, nor is she suffering any abuse. Her perceptions may be skewed by the content she consumes on YouTube. I regret having to confiscate her phone and sift through its contents, but I felt it necessary to protect my husband and me from potential false accusations of mistreatment or abuse. Reddit, am I in the wrong for disciplining my daughter by taking away her phone after discovering she has been venting about how my husband and I treat her?